team size here is from Mr. Amazon Bezos believes that no matter how large your company gets, individual teams shouldn't be larger than what 2 pizzas can feed, which is about, and there is, of course, research about it, how big the team is and how big the efficiency or effectiveness is. So there are more components. What I wanted to bring here is start to distinguish when we talk about teams, and maybe here I will look more to real teams instead of pseudo teams or other teams which might be a department. A department is more a group than it might be a high performing team. Um, why do I say it? It all has an impact on results or effectiveness, on the behavior in the team, the mindset, what are process gains or losses. If the team is bigger, you might have more free riders. You might have more a collective mindset or not. So there are lots of different examples here. Some time ago, last year, I was running with a company in the Midlands a workshop of making team leaders more effective. And one of the person, he had the task between our last workshop and the follow-up workshop 4 weeks later to go, for example, in a team and to work only on his active listening skills. And I saw him in 4 weeks. He might have 10 team meetings. He said that in a week he has scheduled about 23 team meetings. So in a month he had about 80 team meetings. That was very clear for me. Not all team meetings are real teams. Very often we are in teams which are not sharing maybe this interdependency, shared objectives, reflexivity. So maybe when you think about your teams, think about your core teams, which will make the biggest difference. So that might help to get the mindset right. Looking to managing team dynamics in times of disruptions. Yeah, for preparing this, I was interviewing 5 successful team leaders, which I pulled here together with dynamic team intervention dimensions. What was interesting when I had these conversations, one of the team leaders said, suddenly teams and team leaders are forced into the 21st century, working remotely and to have trust to their team members. It was showing actually that what was happening. Virtual teamwork wasn't invented through the current Corona crisis. Many of the teams I'm working with, for them to work virtually is they do it for many years. The headquarters is somewhere, and then they work remote for many years. Suddenly, a lot of work was changed at the university in Essen. Suddenly, we changed a lot of face-to-face contacts, did a lot of things online now in terms of teamwork and other work. So, but looking at is these times of disruptions, for many it was to be thrown into this. What was interesting in terms of team dynamics and in times of disruption, I think the last point here, general priority. I was impressed actually that currently we live in a time, safety and welfare of the team and its member goes before profitability, even with the risk of free riders. It is, on the long run, it's good to be clear what are actually the values in the team or in the organization. That goes hand in hand. It is good to prepare some key priorities in terms of what are the norms, how are we working together. So that was an interesting component here in terms of seeing the company I'm talking about, they have normally every year double-digit growth. So it's you need to be a good team sport person to be effective there in the teams. Nevertheless, in times of crisis, and many give recommendations currently, how to work in virtual teams. I think what becomes in the teams I'm working, situations have changed. Suddenly, the social aspects, the emotional aspects play a bigger role, and maybe it's quite good in terms of a couple of things we might want to bring in later. Let me bring here, in terms of unfolding the team dynamics, let me bring here 5 perspectives of team dynamics into it. And when we go along, maybe make use of the chat box here, that while I'm talking about it, that you might share some hero or villain examples of the different components of psychological team safety, know your team, diversity and inclusion, or agile team learning. What are examples? What do I mean with psychological safety? I think what team research is showing, which is paramount, is actually trust. And then a topic like trust, what the heck is trust? And everybody will have an idea about what is trust. For you as a team leader, it's about here a definition, a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk taking. If you unfold it, it's are you able to share your real beliefs, or will it be undercover? Will it be under the water, under the surface? How can you help that you become more aware of it? To create a psychologically safe team space, it's encouraging team members to share any expectation, anxiety, or requests they have at the start of a team meeting. It's about allowing the different perspective. Of course, in a transactional world, that might be the feeling of not efficiency, but as more as you prepare this kind of trust building activities, as more it will work in your favor. What the 5 team leaders answered: encourage openness and honesty. It's one said, yeah, I'm even sharing now more information, what's really going on. I think what is under the surface, people are afraid. It's normal, it's human to have emotions, fears, anxieties about job safety, and so on. And what it needs actually from the team leaders is, in that situation, to have this right level of empathy. If you think about yourself, how was it the first couple of days when all these social distances started? I heard many times, I feel like paralyzed. People are going through an emotional cocktail, an emotional roller coaster, which is not easy. How can you relate this? I can see, for example, that since we have here the social distancing, um, our dean is sending us every day an update about the current situation in the education market. And at the end of it, he always has a third of the information is more about social context. So it's actually quite interesting how he is managing here the communication with the different teams. In terms of the undercurrent, it's about yeah, don't make people as a hostage or a team prisoner. Here it's about creating a collective climate in the team, in order to get the components right here, and then to do the right interventions or intentional actions to build more trust. You have this flight or fight responses. Often it hijacks brain functions. So in crisis or danger, uh, be in control and get not hostage of negative emotions. It's easily said, but it is maybe the process which makes it clear. Maybe if you want to share some hero or villain examples from your environment where it's about building trust or extending trust. It's yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks for sharing your examples here. It's yeah, there are a lot of good or bad examples of building trust. It is about explaining people what's going on. The Gallup Institute was sharing, but that was before the crisis. Who do you think people believe more, a stranger or your boss? 70%, 75% of people answered they trust more a stranger than their boss. Sometimes it might give you a hint, a wake up call in how can you really build trust? Keeping social interaction just the same as we're in the office. Yeah, I think that's good examples. What I'm reading here. Another dimension, it is to do this kind of check-ups, to feel the pulse. Don't be in the dark. Read the team as a dynamic system. Explore team needs independent of the needs of any single members. This shifts the attention to work of the teams to the team itself. When I work with teams, I actually don't see so much the individual members. I see the team as a whole. Sometimes I go to shareholders. Okay, what do you think about your senior executive teams as one? And then yeah, you will get answers. Oh, they all are great to bring us in the right direction, or they are a lot of alpha people there and then don't have a common sense. You get a kind of check up. What we did at Aston as well before, actually, it was in February in our work and organization department. We have a new leader, department head, and yeah, we try to take the medicine which we subscribe for others. We try to take as well, and we were looking to with a kind of questionnaire inside the team and the different teams, actually about purpose and motivation, about external factors, about relationships, internal factor, about the learning. And this questionnaire, it was a kind of 180 or 360-degree feedback. We asked the specific shareholders as well. And with the help, actually, our marketing department said, think about what's your reputation? What do you stand for? And then is in the market or your shareholders are having the same idea what you as a team or as a big group have. So have your fingers on the pulse is what many people said here in the interview. It is what is essential now. How is a team moral? The people I interviewed, it was actually maybe they prepared the garden quite well because for them remote working was in most of the time already part of the job. So of course people had this undercover fear. uh, Nevertheless, people were committed. The moral was okay. So this interruptions, these disruptive times, they came suddenly. But if people are already used to a kind of working, if you have prepared your garden well, then it's not a surprise, or it prepares you for better times. Yeah, thank you so much. I can see a hero examples. Yeah, keep on going. It's I think very good examples. In terms of what people did, what are team decisions are now important. I think it's about priority setting, or what I said before. People are undergoing an emotional roller coaster, and people feel paralyzed. I think as a empathetic team leader, uh, do something with it. React to it. As I said before, and these components here, what I had before, building trust, knowing your team. it is overlapping. It goes maybe hand in hand. It cannot be distinguished like, oh, this is this action. It's probably overall goes hand in hand. In terms of team dynamics, what are potential undercurrent dynamics? Very popular. Some of you might know this, Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions, where it's about trust, conflict, accountability, commitment, results. I think that all has these are the components which by research were found they have an impact on your team effectiveness. They will impact team dynamics, and as I said before, get an idea where you stand, and very often keep it simple for success in terms of trust on a scale from 0 to 10. Where is your team currently? Maybe on a 5. What do you need to do to get from a 5 to a 6? So to make it more practical for you. In terms of team performance, think about, are you a real team, a high-performing team, a mediocre team? Where you want to go? And in terms of the motivations, where is your group currently? Or how many in-groups, out-groups behavior do you have? Yeah, start maybe sharing some hero and villain examples in terms of knowing your team. And then let me go to the other one, which is actually in many organizations the last couple of years, diversion and inclusion. What do I mean by diversity and inclusion? In simple terms, diversity is the mix and inclusion is getting the mix to work well together. There's a lot of research done in terms of positive effects on age diversity, decision making. It shows actually that looking at numbers, let me have a look in terms. Teams outperform individual decision makers by 66%. All male teams make business decision effective 58%, while gender diverse teams have 73%. It is an important aspect of team dynamic to have in mind the diversity and inclusion impact. It's not always easy, but it's about here having under control potential dynamics of diversity conflicts. It maybe even starts with your own biases or stereotypes or different assumptions. How ready or what are the capabilities in terms of inclusiveness of the team leader and members will play out to deal with the undercurrent? I think here, examples of creating this closeness. One set talked about the Friday pub quiz virtually. Things are shared in social stuff are shared in WhatsApp. Task-related things are shared in Microsoft Teams. So companies have already found quickly some areas how to react on this. It's actually interesting, inspect what system of value is and make it explicit as possible. This topic, what I mentioned before, job security was very important. If you think about diversity, inclusion, look what are your priority values in terms of dealing with that. Last but not least, I started the discussion about think about actually your learning strategy with your teams. Do you have one? Is it more short-term or long-term related strategy? Shifting the learning strategy focus from efficiency to agility will allow organizations to adjust swiftly in an uncertain future. This was a headline 3 years ago somewhere. So it's about uncertain times. They come and go. This current crisis, they are awful, terrible, and on a new dimension. Nevertheless, uncertain times are predictable that the next one will come as well. Is your team learning strategy focused on efficiency or agility? I saw that in studies I did that a lot of our students who are coming to Aston, they have a sequential mindset in terms of how they deal with the learning. It is about the concept they're looking for. Not too many are prepared for a kind of agile learning environment. I think this agile learning on the fly, it is around for many years, but in the moment it shows, how good are you with that? And here I got from the interviews I did with a couple of team leaders, this kind of reflecting comments, navigating through this uncertainty, let me observe mixed reactions. So the people I was interviewing, I think they have already on a scale from 0 to 10, their reflexivity in terms of that they ask themselves, what do I do with my team? Is my team well prepared? I think it's about this learning aspect of it. How much do I really look that the team as a whole is learning? A team like a person has its own vision, it has its blind spot, it even teams have their moods. So what do I do as a leader to deal with that appropriately? What it needs more as a team leader. One of them said it's actually, yeah, extending my social emotional IQ. What he meant was actually this kind of social competence. It's something in the future you will not harm yourself to extend your social competence as a team leader. How can you be more inclusive? This inclusiveness is an important aspect. If people feel included, they will be more committed. So how do you do that in terms of learning for yourself, maybe as a team leader, or for you as a team member? Extend autonomy levels of accountability, higher commitment or fear. Actually, the surprising thing was for one team leader, he said, now people are suddenly doing things I even didn't ask for. So suddenly people were even more committed. That might be now a higher commitment or fear of unemployability. It is, we don't need to go into it. I think in terms of learning, there is this learning curve about which is actually a reflective process and experimentation of new things. Action with no reflection is daydreaming. So do something in terms of getting there. And reflexivity is very much connected to innovation, and that goes hand in hand. What research showed, fast feedback is very important for in teams which got fast feedback, their performance were better and the customer satisfaction were better. I think it's a quick lunch taster. I just wanted to show you a couple of things, and let me put things together before we go in a short question and answer. It is about these 4 components: psychological safety, know your team, diversity and inclusion, and agile learning, which are relevant. I think in disruptive times, think about new team anchors. Dropping new team anchor is not about making the storm going away, but rather holding the ship or your team steady so you don't get swept away out to the sea. I think that might be the key message. Next to the message I wanted to give, reflect about your overall strategy in terms how you deal with your teams. Over to you, Kasim and Lauren. Maybe let's get some questions.
Hi, Uwe. Sorry, I think Kasim's had a few internet issues, so I'll help with the questions. So I think we did have one earlier on from Young. So his question was, during this new way of remote working we have all faced, what are some of the biggest positives and challenges you've heard of in terms of managing team dynamics?
What is the most positive was the question?
What was the biggest positives and challenges from remote working that you've heard of?
I think I like this comment from this one team leader saying suddenly everybody is thrown into the 21st century. I think this remote working is therefore. I do remote working for more than 10 years. However, many teams at Aston as well, they were not used to home offices. Now suddenly, I think it's working quite well, and I think in the moment the advantage of this bad thing of Corona is people are committed. At Aston, we all suddenly work more and even from home, but it's working. I think that's the good example. Um, I cannot think a bad example. Maybe some of the listeners can share a bad example.
Thank you. We've actually had two more questions in the chat box. I don't know if you can see those, Uwe. The first one, could you give some more examples of agility versus efficiency in terms of learning strategies and team dynamics?
Agility, and then say it again.
Agility versus efficiency.
I think this efficiency is very much short-term perspectives. I was working last year with an organization where it was about to introduce new way of working. So in that field, in that industry, the margins are very slow and the competition is high. What they do more now is that they work with real data. For a lot of people, and then that's diversity again. The younger ones were more fit to make use of information from social media and so on. Others are not. It is about building a learning architecture to guide people in new ways of working. The working in the car industry, what we are currently seeing, what was working for 50 years now, it's all obsolete. We are in new ways of working. There in logistics, Sara, the company in Spain, was making logistic crazy. From the point they have their product to it is on the shop floor, it takes them 2 weeks. In other organization, it takes them 10 months. So we have a change in the work field. The new way of working is something which is happening currently, and it's about preparing yourself and then building guidance for the people to learn with a more agile approach.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Another one. What is the one thing we can all implement today to make management of our teams more efficient? So, if you were to give advice to all the attendees today, how would they make their team dynamics more efficient?
I think start with yeah, build yourself a learning strategy. You don't need to. I think currently, and maybe in the moment, it's about anchor your team and get it. It's about not getting swept away. Look at social things. I think a lot of good positive interactions are happening. At Aston, we sometimes say now with social media connections, we know more about each other than we did before. Keep the good stuff, what you are learning now. People are inventing a lot of good behavior in terms of team dynamics, which were not there 6 weeks ago. Make more use of it. What you maybe currently do and what's working. Nevertheless, not tomorrow, but reflect about your long-term strategy, how you want to make the ground ready for your teams. That's next storms are coming, so you don't need to be a fortune teller to see. Make your tips ready to go through a couple of more storms.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks. We have just one more question before we end the session. This one's from Lindsay, and she's just asked how to measure whether team dynamics are right and how you do that.
I think there are a lot of measurements around what I mentioned before. There's 5 dysfunction from Lencioni. These are things you can buy. You can have a look. Mindtool.com, where they have a kind of short things. Get in contact with us at the university. Very often we use that for dissertations of master. You might get a kind of for free assessment to check your team dynamics. It's a complex system. You should look to these 5 dysfunctions. Conflict, trust are big things. How is the learning agility? Make yourself 2, 3 questions to this psychological safety, know your team diversity and agile learning, and then that can be your short questionnaire. You can make a quick check up and your pulse check up.
Cool, thanks for that. So I think we'll end the session there. Thank you so much for that presentation. I mean, like you said, I think a lot of teams have been thrown into the deep end and are trying to obviously work remotely, which many organisations are not used to. So it's been really useful just to have more of an understanding of team dynamics. So I think we'll end the session there. I mean, there's lots of comments to say. Thank you if you can see those. So thanks to all the attendees for taking part today, and thank you to Uwe for the presentation.
Thank you so much for having me, and please get in touch with us at Aston. We like to share more of our science, which might be good for you, whether it's team dynamics or other team topics. Just reach out to us.